Very good morning to everyone. So today I'll be doing the Hindu analysis dating 23rd of November. I've shared the screen with you. Okay, so this news is coming over here that the Bihar cabinet approves resolution demanding special status for state. And the Bihar cabinet on Wednesday passed a resolution. What is that resolution? That resolution is requesting the center to immediately grant a special category status to the state. So the cabinet, that is the group of minister of the ruling government, has passed a resolution, and this resolution is demanding what? A special status. The state, and that state is Bihar. Now, why is this special category status is being demanded? So, a special category status is generally granted to states which face geographical and socio-economic disadvantages, such as those which lie along an international border, have hilly terrain, a sizable share of tribal population, or suffer from economic backwardness. So, one thing that you need to be very clear about is who all get this special category status. Now, this special category status or state is based on first the geographical and second is socio-economic disadvantage. If it is socio-economically disadvantaged, for example, if it is lying in the international borders, then if it is having a hilly terrain, now I'll explain you the reason why hilly terrain is considered as socioeconomically disadvantaged. Then you have, if it is having a share of tribal population. And it suffers from economic backwardness. Now, these are the conditions based on which a state can, can always talk about granting a special category status from the center. So first is your geographical reasons, second is your socio-economic disadvantage reasons, and the first is if it is lying in the international borders. Why? Because there could be various conflicts that might happen in the border areas and which could affect the socio-economic condition of the state. So the socio-economic condition of the state gets hampered if it is lying in the international borders, and if it is lying in the hilly terrain, the problem gets even aggravated. Why? Because the resources scarcity is over there. And why resources scarcity is over there? Because in this region, transportation becomes difficult. And the third thing that the author is talking about, or this news is talking about is tribal population. That is sizable tribal population is over there. Why? Because now this population is usually considered what, isolated from the mainstream society. Then the last one is economic backwardness. Ultimately, if transportation is not good, the population is isolated from the mainstream society, it is lying in the international borders. Now, if you see the Doklam issue, then you have the areas that are in the borders of India and Pakistan. Those villages are most oftenly, they are bombarded. So all this is going to lead to economic backwardness. So once the state is economically backward, that means the GDP of the state, of that particular state, you can say is not contributing enough to the GDP of the country, then we can say that it is economically backward. So if it is economically backward, then the state can demand for special category status. Now, such states receive a high share of central funding for development purpose. Now, what is the remedy or what is the solution for the special category status? So it says that if the center or if the government has granted it a special category status, so what is the next step? Now, here the center will provide what? High share of funding. And this high share of funding is for what? Because this high share of funding will help in increasing the development activities of the state. Right? Now, the Chief Minister said that the state is home to around 94 lakh poor families, and granting of special status will help the government get about rupees 2.5 lakh crores needed to fund various welfare measures over the next 5 years. So, the Honorable CM of the state is talking about what granting the special status will help the government get about this much fund about, and why this fund is required. That means close to 2.5 lakh crores of fund, and this shall lead to what? This shall lead to welfare measures. Now, keeping in mind the interest of the people of Bihar, the central government should immediately grant a special status to Bihar, he said in the message. Now, what else the CM is demanding? So, the Mr. Kumar said that the demand was also necessitated by the findings of the caste survey conducted by this government. So, on what basis they are saying that the special category status should be granted? So, one thing that the CM has pointed out, that there was a caste survey that was conducted in the state, and based on that caste survey we can say what the state requires what a special category status. Mr. Kumar said while his government increased the caste-based quota in jobs and education to 65% from 50% after the survey, a number of welfare measures have been taken for the benefit of families living in the abject poverty. Now, we intend to provide in installments and assistance of rupees 2 lakh to one member of each of these family for some type of economic activities. So the same has a plan, and the plan is granting close to rupees 1 lakh to one member of the family, and this one member should be involved, or this one member should use this much of rupees for economic activity. Now, he said, till now, the Bihar government has been providing an assistance of rupees 60,000 to purchase land to every landless family. which has now been increased to 1 lakh to benefit this much of families. Now, beside about 39 lakh families living in huts will be given permanent houses. The CM said he has been asking for a special status to the state since 2010 and indirectly was slamming the farmer government. Now, based on this, Bihar should get the special category status, and it is very much required. If the government does not grant the special category status, now the CM is saying that probably then they will not let, or they will dethrone the present government. So this is not important for you, but what is required is that what do you mean by special category status? On what basis you are granting special category status for a state, and if the special category status is granted to the state, what are the steps that need to be taken so as to bring the development activities or to initiate the development activities in the state. Fine. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, so there's this beautiful article written that talks about listen to the people, not the numbers. Now, this editorial is written by Arun Myra, and he is the author of Shaping the Future: How to Be, Think, and Act in the New World. Now, the Indian economy has an incomes problem, not a growth problem. Incomes are not growing sufficiently or sustainably for a very large number of people. So, the author is talking about what? That India or the country is suffering from a problem. And what is that problem? Income problem. So the problem is income problem, not growth problem. Now, even though overall GDP growth is good, that means the numbers are showing what? That the numbers are in your favor. So GDP growth is good. There is increasing pressure for reservation of jobs for all economically weaker sections, regardless of caste or religion. That means the numbers are showing that the GDP of the country is good, the GDP is growing, but there is an increased pressure, and pressure is what? Providing reservations for the economically weaker section, regardless of caste or religion. So, economists on both sides, for the government and those against it, are debating whether the economy is creating enough jobs, and are questioning the veracity of the government's data. That means now if GDP growth is good, then why is this demand for reservation coming? The question is this. And this reservation is being asked based on what? Economically weaker group. That means those who are economically weaker. That means who are not able to financially, take off themselves. So economically weaker, and like this economically weaker section is not on the basis of caste or religion. So they are not asking for reservation based on caste or religion. The reservation is being asked or being wanted for the people who are economically not well off. So those against the government also want to show that the problem of the growth with insufficient job has been created by the policies of the present government and not the previous one. They are like Sheikh Chilis, who was looking for his lost keys under the lamp rather than in the darkness where he lost them. And the data is that they can see, but it cannot explain the problem and will not point to the right solution. Now, what is or how is the US economy? Because what happens is that we always look towards the Western country, and probably the one superpower we have right now is US. So, if US is able to manage this economy so well, that means there's something good that they are doing, and we need to learn from them. That how come the job creation over there is helping to lift people, and the similar thing or something which we are missing out, we are not probably providing it in our economy. So based on that, what is the author saying? The US economy seems to be doing well according to its headline economic numbers. This is what I said, that it is one of the superpowers. So probably the numbers are in the favor. That means that the numbers that we at least get to see in the news and the headlines. So growth is good. Employment numbers have been improving. That means in the superpower that is US, the growth is good. The numbers are improving. Numbers, that means the employment numbers and the income numbers. So those numbers are improving. So numbers are improving. Now, yet polls show that a large majority of US citizens are dissatisfied with the state of their economy. This has become a major issue before the presidential election scheduled for the next month. Now, what is the author saying? The author is saying that the US citizens are dissatisfied with the state of economy. That means whatever this is being shown is in the headlines, and when it comes to citizens, so US citizens are dissatisfied. The US president even worked with striking auto workers, demanding a fair deal with their employers. US statistics of growth and employment, whose veracity no one doubts or are not measuring what really matters to common citizens. Workers want a fair deal and adequate and secure incomes to cope with inflation. The president agreed with the workers that CEOs of auto companies were paying themselves far too much, while asking workers to tighten their belts to improve the competitiveness of US companies. So, when US president has looked upon the matter, so what he found was that the company owners or the CEOs of the companies are actually the one who are most benefited, who the companies. And when it came to the employees, they are tightened with the competition. That means they have to increase their credibility, or you can say their efficiency, to face the competition. Now, jobs that are not good. So, the overall problem of incomes in India, according to economists, is that insufficient numbers have moved out of agriculture into manufacturing. So, according to the author, the one big issue that the economists are facing, or according to the economist, why the income, or you can say the overall problem of income in India is there. So, income in India. The one problem of income in India is, first, there are insufficient number of people who have moved from agriculture to manufacturing industry. Now, this has been the historical pattern for sustainable growth in all countries, including the US 100 years ago and China more recently. Now, India's policymakers thought they had found a shortcut in the 1990s, directing from agriculture to services, with the boost in the growth of exportable information technological services. Now that means that it was during the period of 1990s. If you remember, we went for LPG reforms. So the author is saying that 1990s India went towards a market of service industry, and there we started providing what? Information technology services. Now the shortcut has entered in a cul-de-sac. Now there is very little room in high-end services to absorb the large numbers of young Indians in the need of jobs. Moreover, these jobs require a level of education that people in rural areas do not have. So one issue is that the jobs that are there in the market, what do they require? The jobs in the market require skills, and these skills, or you can say these high-end services require levels of education. So skills, higher level of education, and this is missing in the youth of rural areas. Therefore, when they move out of agriculture, they need work that fits their present abilities and put them onto a ladder that they can climb. They need jobs where they can learn higher skills and earn more. Labor intensive manufacturing, services, and construction provide them first step. So, which are your labor intensive industries? So, this labor intensive industries are your manufacturing sector, your service sector, and your construction sector. So, labor intensive work, manufacturing, service, and construction sector. The millions of Indians who have moved out of agriculture in last 3 decades moved into such jobs. That means these are the jobs that have actually absorbed youth who have moved out from the agriculture sector. The problem is that they have, irrespective of the sector, the problem is that the jobs they have, irrespective of the sectors, are not good jobs. They do not pay enough, they are temporary or on contract basis, and they do not provide social security or assistance to develop further skills. So that means these jobs that are absorbing youth from the agriculture sector, who have migrated or who have shifted from the agriculture sector to the manufacturing, service, and construction sectors. Now, even though they are providing employment, but the employment is lacking in certain aspects. And what are that? Pay is not enough. Second is no social security. And the next is there is no assistance to develop further skills. So, no skill development. In fact, even in large modern manufacturing enterprises, workers are employed through contractors to provide employers with flexibility to reduce cost. Contract workers are paid much less than the regular workers. So there is one thing more. That means there are two types of employment that is being provided. One is your regular employment, and another is your contractual basis. And now the shift is happening majorly to contractual basis. Now they have insecure employment and are not assisted to develop higher skills. That means the contractual worker employers are facing another level of issue, and that issue is regarding what? That firstly there is no security, and secondly there is no higher skill development. Fine. Now the world is at a turning point. New ideas of economics are required to create an environmentally sustainable and socially harmonious future before it is too late. That means all the kind of like whatever employment it is, whether it's a manufacturing sector, whether it's a construction sector, whether it's a service sector, firstly they need to target what? That the jobs that they are creating is environmentally sustainable. So environmentally sustainable and socially harmonious. Statistics of growth and employment measures what we used to think should be measured. New concept of work are required. Also, new design of enterprises in which work is done. That means there should be new evaluation standards of the social economic relations between the participants in these enterprises. Now, the drive for green, organic, and local to reduce carbon emissions and improve the care of environment will make small enterprises beautiful again. So the author is suggesting you what the products, or you can say the economy should focus on green, organic, and local. Why local? Because we have talked about being vocal to local, so that's why local. So green, organic, and local. If the focus is on this, what is going to happen? This shall reduce emission. And once this shall reduce emissions, this shall improve the environment, and this will make small enterprises, or this shall improve the working of small enterprises. Now, economies of scope will determine the viability of enterprises rather than economies of scale. So, if you see, there's a very beautiful thing that is coming, that economies of scope will determine the viability. So, this shall determine your viability and not economies of scale. Why is the author saying so? Because if you see, right now I've just talked about this green economy, organic economy, local economy. So what is happening is that if the economy is focused on bringing, the products, or the economy is focused on environmentally sustainable products, what is going to happen is people are going to prefer this. And maybe internationally also, right? Yesterday only I did the editorial with you, and that was talking about climate financing and sustainable economy. So what is going to happen is then people will be more attracted towards that kind of economy, which is green, organic, and local. So that would bring in more scope. And that's the reason why the author is saying that the focus should on be the viability of the economy. The focus should be on growing, and the focus should be on incomes. It's not, and not on the numbers. That means the numbers that GDP is showing. Now, denser local and economic webs will develop rather than long global supply chains through which specialized products made on scale in different parts of the world are connecting producers with consumers in other distant parts. Now, the economic value in caregiving. Attention will shift towards creating genuine social enterprises rather than enterprises for creating economic efficiencies and surplus. See, again, they said economies of scope and not economy of scale. That means not on numbers, but more broader things. And again, they are saying what? Creating a social enterprise. Social enterprises rather than enterprises for creating economic efficiencies or surplus. So they are saying that the focus should be on social enterprises and rather than surplus generation. Okay. Those who provide care and the work of caregiving must be valued more than economists value them today. In the present paradigm of economic growth, caregivers, traditionally women, are plugged out of families which are a natural social enterprise to work in factories, offices, and retails, and enterprise designed to produce monetary economic value. And that means the author is saying social enterprise is what? It is the caregiving attitude. It is a woman. It is the role of traditional women. So, role of traditional women, caregiving attitude. Now, the author is saying that the role of traditional women, their caregiving attitudes. Now, what is happening is that instead of focusing on this social section, social enterprise section, that means the role the caregiving or the caregiver were playing. Now, the role is shifting towards more on monetary terms, because now the women who had this role, who are playing these roles in their back in their homes, now they are working in the retail sectors, then they are working on the offices designed to produce monetary economic values. Now, when the economists measure women's participation in the labor force, they value only what women do in formal enterprises for money. That means whatever the work is being done, it is being evaluated, or it is being evaluated in on what basis? So it is evaluated on the basis of the monetary profit. Now, they seem to assign no value to the informal work they do outside their homes to earn money, whether as domestic caregivers in other homes or on family farms. Moreover, they are unable to see any economic value in the caregiving they provide without monetary compensation in their families and communities. That is what we are, we have been talking about, that the GDP is calculating whatever formal work, or you can say the monetary terms work that is being done. So the caregiving work that is provided by the women section back in their families, in their homes, it is not calculated, it is just being surpassed, and that has, or that holds immense value. So the prevalent paradigm of economic theory is distorting social organizations, which families are to suit the requirements of corporations, which are formal economic organizations. So the money measured economy, GDP, this is what I was saying, and the GDP is calculating that, and it is outpassing, it is surpassing the caregiving that the women section is providing back in their homes. GDP grows while the care that humans can and should give each other reduces. So there's a lot of competition that is going on. There's a lot of race for promotions, etc., that is happening in corporate sectors, in the retail sectors, in the service sectors. So that surpasses the caregiving attitude that people have for each other. So measurement of economic growth and employment must not be made any longer in 20th century concept of economic growth. They must be reformed to reflect forms of work and enterprises we want more of in future. That means the author is of the opinion that you need to take care. That means the way we are calculating the GDP calculation is being done on the basis of the economy that 20th century was demanding. Right now we need to focus on the fact what is future demanding from us. So based on that we need to work upon, or we need to choose wisely how we are going to calculate, or how we are going to calculate the economic growth concept, or what we want in future, or what is the vision of us. For this paradigm shift, the process of policy making must begin with listening to those who have not being given much value in the present economic paradigm. That means the workers, the small holding farmers, small entrepreneurs, and women. So the lesson for the policy makers is what? Don't count on historical statistics to guide good policy for the future. Listen to the people, what matters to them. That means if you want a good economic growth, don't be guided by the past. That means what was demanded in the past. Rather look towards the future and involve the people, or listen to the people, what matters to them. Okay, fine. Let's move on to the next one. Reporting animal cruelty makes children safer. Now, animal cruelty making children safer. Let's see what the editorial is talking about. So, firstly, the editorial is written by one of the founders of Animal Law and Policy Network, an independent think tank. Then another one is animal protection lawyer. Now, child abuse is grave and rampant in India. In 2007, the Union Ministry and Women, just a minute. Okay, animal cruelty, fine. So, child abuse is grave and rampant in India. In 2007, the Union Ministry of Women and Child Development published the largest empirical study about the incidence of child abuse in India. The study specifically examined the prevalence of physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and girl-child neglect in India. That means the report that was given by Ministry of Women and Child Development, they have pointed out to the fact of, or the study of child abuse, and this child abuse is in the form of physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and girl child neglect. That means the wide range of offense that has been covered under child abuse is your physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and girl child neglect. Okay, so it found that 2 out of every 3 children were physically abused. Over half of the children reported having faced one or more forms of sexual abuse, and every second child reported facing emotional abuse. Now, despite these troubling statistics, the factors contributing to child abuse remain unaddressed. Child abuse in India has been attributed to structure and size of the family, lack of effective implementation of laws, poverty, illiteracy, and even cultural factors. Now, however, one crucial element that has been missing from the discourse on child production in India is the link between victim of child abuse and animal cruelty, which is going to be discussed. So the editorial is all about child abuse and animal cruelty that is being played. Now the link between animal cruelty and human violence first came to light in 1751 with William Hoggart's 4 stages of cruelty. So what is William Hoggart's discussing about 4 stages of cruelty? Now, since then, there have been plethora of studies highlighting the undeniable link. A 1980 pilot study conducted in England found evidence that suggested that children are at risk of abuse or neglect in households that abuse their family pet. Now, what is that? So, according to the study, out of 23 families that had a history of animal abuse, 83% have identified by human social service agencies as having children at risk of abuse or neglect. I mean, could you just imagine what that all those families that have been involved in animal cruelty, or you can say the pet they have kept, pet cruelty, 80% of the families, the number is saying 83%, so I'm taking it approximately 80%. So 80% of those families who were involved in animal cruelty were related to child abuse as well. This is a strange thing that is coming, that if the families are involved in pet cruelty, now those are the families who are involved in your child abuse as well. So if you see how are the authors linking this, these two scopes, one is about animal cruelty and the other one is about child abuse. A different study of 53 families in which child abuse has occurred, carried out in New Jersey, that is US, in 1983, found that animal abuse and child abuse co-occurred in 88% of the cases. That means 88% of the cases are talking about co-occurrence of animal cruelty and child abuse. In a 2019 study on homes with interpersonal violence in the US, it was found that in 12.3% of the cases, threats and violence towards animals are used as means to coerce children into compliance so that they do not report the abuser. That means they are coerced. Coerced means, you out of fear you tell somebody that you don't do this, otherwise I do this. So it's a coercion. As per the study, since animals are threatened to result in compliance of the child, some of this violence is done without the knowledge of the other caregiver. Children are reluctant to discuss the animal abuse for fear of what might happen to the animal or themselves. That means the children who are witnessing this animal abuse, they don't inform the other one because they feel what that if they are going to do so, what would be the repercussion the person would be doing to the animal or to them. Now, easier to detect. Further, in many cases, animal abuse is easier to detect than child abuse, and also usually easier for the victims of domestic violence, including children, to report. How? Firstly, is Early identification of homes with animal abuse may save other human victims encountering abuse. And that means if you get to know that the particular house is involved in animal abuse, so if we get to know that this house has been involved in animal abuse, then there are high chances that child abuse will happen over here. Now, this can also serve as circumstantial evidence in custody and child abuse hearing, as it's difficult for children to provide detailed accounts of their own abuse. That means it becomes difficult for the child to give a detailed account. So, this report that in this family animal abuse is happening, this could be used as an evidence. This is what the authors are talking about. Now, there's a strong link between animal cruelty and child abuse, and there's an urgent need to investigate him further in the Indian context. Even though law enforcement agencies in other countries have devoted resources to studying the co-occurrence of animal cruelties with other forms of violent crimes, especially crimes against children, there is no study that empirically assesses this link in India. In fact, the National Crime Record Bureau NCRB does not even collect data on offences registered and prosecuted under Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act 1960. As studies in other countries have shown, what the collection and aggregation of this data can prove to be a significant tool for law enforcement agencies for what to understand how different crimes overlap and prevent the occurrence of these crimes. See, what the authors are altogether trying to say is that you need to take note of what the families who are involved in animal cruelty. Now, these families who are involved in animal cruelty, they are saying that there are 80% chances that this family is also facing, or here the children of these families are also facing child abuse. So, once you have the evidence of animal cruelty, this could be acted as an evidence in order to prove that this child has faced child abuse over here, because it becomes difficult for the child to give the detailed account to what happened to them. So, going by that, poor enforcement of animal cruelty laws therefore not only harms animal but also human victims of violence. Reporting animal abuse consistently, enforcing anti-cruelty laws can act as deterrent for further acts of violence against not only animals but also humans. It is therefore imperative to report, register, and prosecute cases involving animal cruelty. The link shows us that both human and animal victims of crimes are prone to victimization by the same perpetrator. That means the perpetrator of the crime is going to act as a victim. There are people who try to act as a victim. That means, if some people or if someone is involved in animal cruelty, what is the first step that person is going to say? That means the animal was going to harm that person, and based on what in order to defend themselves or for defending themselves, they went for this step. So that is what they are saying. This might end up doing what victimization of the perpetrator. Now, there's an opportunity for the stakeholders in the child protection and animal protection movements to collaborate to meet the respective collective objective of reducing abuse. Now, reporting and prosecuting animal abuse is not just about saving animals. So, reporting, prosecuting animal abuse is not just about saving animals, it's about protecting our children from violence, securing a brighter future for them. Understanding this important link can stop the cycle of violence at its source and help make our children safer. So, the authors are saying that if you are going to check animal cruelty, what is going to happen is that this will not only help you in future, because how is this going to take place? You are going to secure the future by stopping the violence at the source. So by stopping the violence at the source, you are going to secure the future of the children's and animals as well. Fine. Okay, let's move on to the next analysis. Okay, so SOI, that is your Survey of India. SOI, private firms to create 3D maps of cities and towns. Now, in a first of its kind initiative, the Survey of India SOI, historically the custodian of India's maps, has signed an agreement with a Mumbai-based private firm company, Gen Z International, to prepare three-dimensional maps of several cities and towns. Called digital twins, these maps are three-dimensional representation of cities and when coupled with high-resolution images can be used in variety of planning applications. The reason why these 3D maps are being preferred. So the reason for preferring these 3D maps, firstly is that various planning applications can take place. Now the collaboration will allow the Gen Z to generate three-dimensional digital twins for major cities and towns to develop an urban 3D data model and allow it to license geospatial data products to buyers in a content as a service model. That means what is going to happen is that if you are going to a 3D model of a city, so what is going to happen? Based on that, you are going to bring in development. Okay? So for major cities and towns, develop an urban 3D data model and allow it to license geospatial data products to buyers in a content as a service model according to company officials. So far, the company has built digital twins of Ayodhya, Dharavi slums, Kochi slums of Kochi, Mumbai, and Kanpur, among other applications. So right now, what we have that the Survey of India, along with the Gen Z private firm, is doing what? Three D maps of urban towns. This will help in planning and which are the places that we have worked upon. So those are your Ayodhya, Dharavi slum of Mumbai, Kochi, and Kanpur. So the company has been digital twins of Ayodhya, Dharavi slums clustered in Mumbai, Kochi, and Kanpur, among other applications. That means other applications are also involved, which they have not highlighted. This becomes important with respect to your prelim section, science and tech. Okay, coming on to this section. Conference of Parties 28 turns attention to potent methane emissions. Now, climate talks often revolve around reducing the most dangerous greenhouse gas, that is your CO2. Uh, that means GHG, reducing GHGs, that is your CO2. While other powerful heat trapping emissions, namely methane, are also likely to be in crosshairs of negotiators. Potent but relatively short lived methane is a key target for countries wanting to slash emissions quickly and slow climate change. That is particularly because large amount of methane are simply leaking into atmosphere from fossil fuel infrastructure. That means your methane is leaking where? Onto the atmosphere. And what is the source of this methane? Is your fossil fuel infrastructure. Atmospheric methane CH4 occurs abundantly in nature as the primary component of natural gas. It is the second largest contributor to climate change, accounting for around 16% of the warming effect. Methane remains in the atmosphere only about 10 years, but has a much more powerful warming impact than CO2. I mean, CH4 has a high impact of warming the atmosphere as compared to CO2. That means CH4, they're saying that it lives 10 years. Once it is there in the atmosphere, and the source of the leakage is coming from the fossil fuel infrastructure. So its warming effect is 28 times greater than CO2. That means it is 28 times CO2 over a 100-year time scale. Now, exactly how much methane is released in the atmosphere remains subject to significant uncertainty, according to international energy agencies, despite progress in the monitoring of emissions through the use of satellites. Scientists are also puzzling over a steady increase of methane in atmosphere, with concentration currently over 2.5 times greater than that pre-industrial levels. That means the concentration of your methane in the atmosphere has, or comparing to the period of pre-industrial levels, it is 2.5 times more. Around 60% of methane emissions are linked to human activities. That means first source what they talked about is fossil fuel. emissions or fossil fuel infrastructure. The second they talked about is human activity, where 60% of methane emission is happening. Now, methane remains in the atmosphere for only 10 years but has a much more powerful warming impact than CO2. Its effect is 28 times greater than CO2 over a 100-year time scale. While most of the remainder is from the wetlands. So, another is your wetlands. So, fossil fuels, humans, wetlands. Agriculture is the biggest culprit responsible for a quarter of emission. And what they are saying is that agriculture, why? Because the land is contributing towards it. Most of that is from livestock. Agriculture means livestock. And livestock means cow and sheep who are doing what? They are releasing methane. And this is happening how? Like when? So this is happening during the time when digestion is taking place. And when digestion is happening, there is manure generation. So one is your agriculture, livestock. Agriculture, what they are talking about is rice cultivation where flooded fields create ideal condition for methane emitting bacteria. Now the energy sector, coal, oil, gas is the second largest source of human caused methane emission. Methane leaks from energy infrastructure such as gas pipelines and from deliberate releases during maintenance. Now, discarded household waste also releases large quantities of methane when it decomposes. The second thing what they are talking about is discarded household waste. So this discarded household waste is contributing towards large quantities of methane when it decomposes if left to rot in landfills. That means this waste is contributing towards the landfills. A recent IAA report estimates that rapid cuts in methane emissions linked to the fossil fuel sector could prevent us up to 0.1 degrees Celsius of warming by mid-century. That might sound like a modest reduction, but such a reduction would have an impact greater than immediately taking all cars, trucks in the world from the road. Now, it could be achieved by repairing leaky infrastructure and eliminating routine flaring and venting during maintenance. In agriculture, it is possible to modify animal lives, for example, adding compound to improve their health. Because I have just talked about the digestions of cow and sheep, because this shall lead to creation of manure, and again this is leading to what? Increasing of methane in the environment. So this is what they are saying, that if you are going to include a compound that should improve the health and that would change the animal diets or modify the animal diet, that would bring an impact. So for rice fields, changes to water management are the most promising way to reduce emissions. That means when it comes to rice fields, what can be done is you need to check on water management. So when you work upon water management, what is going to happen? This is one of the most promising way, that means one of the most reliable and the suitable way for reducing the emissions according to the FAO reports. Okay, so this much was for today. Thank you so much.